There is a moment right before the whistle blows when something shifts inside you. Not excitement, not nervousness. Something older than both of those things. Your chest tightens, your jaw sets. And somewhere in the back of your mind, without quite deciding to, you start calculating. What happens if they score first? What happens if we do? What happens if this ends the same way it always seems to end? Then the ball moves. And everything you knew about watching football quietly disappears. Portugal versus Spain is not a normal match. You know this even if you cannot explain it. It moves differently. It weighs more. The goals land harder. The misses sting longer. And the result stays with you for days in a way that a 4-0 win against someone else never does. Why? That question has an answer. And the answer turns out to say something uncomfortable about the version of yourself that sits in that chair watching. Start with the word rivalry. In everyday use, it means two teams that compete a lot. But psychologist Gavin Kilduff at New York University spent years studying what actually separates a rivalry from ordinary competition, and his findings are not what you would expect. Proximity matters. Similarity matters. And shared history matters far more than most people realize. His research showed that the most psychologically intense rivalries do not form between opposites. They form between near equals who share almost everything except the one thing that divides them. Two countries who speak languages so close you can almost understand both. Two national football cultures that mirror each other in style, obsession, and scale. Two sets of fans who, if you remove the colors, would be nearly impossible to tell apart. Portugal and Spain are not opposites. That is the point. That is precisely why this game works the way it does on your nervous system. When you watch two teams you have nothing in common with, you are an observer. When you watch a team you love against a team you have never thought about, you are a supporter. But when you watch this game, this specific fixture, you are something else entirely. You are a participant in something that has been running longer than you have been alive, and your brain knows it. Which brings us to what is actually happening inside your body when that whistle blows. Social psychologist Dolf Zillmann developed what he called excitation transfer theory in the early 1970s. His original research was about film and television, but sports scientists have been applying it to live competition ever since. The core finding is this: your body generates real physiological arousal during high-stakes matches. Your heart rate climbs. Cortisol floods your system. Adrenaline moves in a way it never does during a low-stakes fixture. And crucially, that arousal does not reset cleanly between moments. It transfers. It accumulates. This is why a 0-0 Portugal versus Spain game can feel more physically exhausting than a 5-3 match between teams you barely care about. The tension is not only about what is happening on the pitch, it is about what your body is doing with 90 years of accumulated meaning, and your body is doing a great deal with it. But Zillmann's theory alone does not explain the specific texture of this fixture. For that, you need to understand something about identity. Robert Cialdini, one of the most cited social psychologists in the world, documented a phenomenon he called BIRGing, basking in reflected glory. The principle is simple. When your team wins, you feel personally elevated. You use words like, "We won and we did it," even though you were sitting on a couch 800 kilometers from the stadium. Your brain has borrowed the team's success and folded it into your sense of self. The flip side, which Cialdini called CORFing, cutting off reflected failure, works in reverse. When they lose, you protect yourself by creating distance. They played terribly becomes easier to say than we lost. Portugal versus Spain activates both of these mechanisms, harder than almost any other match, because the identity stakes are harder here. You are not just watching a football result. You are watching a piece of what you believe about yourself, your country, your culture, your language, your place on the peninsula, play out in 90 minutes of real time. And your brain, which has spent years building that identity, is not going to sit quietly while someone on the other side of the touchline threatens it. Now here is the uncomfortable part. The opponent you most need to beat is always the opponent you most need to exist. If Spain ceased to matter, if they became through some improbable collapse just another team on the calendar, Portugal would lose something essential, not just a fixture, a mirror. Because rivalries are not actually about hate, they are about definition. Your rival tells you who you are by being the thing you are not. And in a rivalry, this old, this intimate, this geographically and culturally entangled, that definition runs extraordinarily deep. Psychologist Henri Tajfel's social identity theory helps explain why. Tajfel found that people derive a significant part of their self-worth not from their personal achievements alone, but from the groups they belong to. And the value of belonging to a group is partly measured by comparing that group to relevant others. The key word is relevant. Random others do not move the needle. Near equals move it enormously. The more similar the outgroup, the more psychologically necessary it is to establish that you are not them. Portugal and Spain are the ultimate near equals on this particular stage. Same continent, same peninsula, same obsession with the game, and yet completely separate identities, separate languages, separate histories, separate ideas of what it means to win. This is what makes this game different from every other game. It is not merely a test of football quality, though it is certainly that. It is a test of something older and something closer to the way ancient groups defined themselves by the group across the river, the group who spoke almost the same words, ate almost the same food, but who were not you. The science says that kind of rivalry lights up the brain in ways that ordinary competition simply does not reach. So the next time you feel that shift, that tightening before kickoff, that weight the result carries for days afterward, understand what you are actually feeling. You are not just a fan watching a football match. You are a human nervous system running a program tens of thousands of years old, triggered by 90 minutes of sport between two countries too similar to be strangers and too close to ever stop competing. Portugal versus Spain does not feel different from every other match because it is more important on paper. It feels different because somewhere underneath the football, it has always been about more than football. And some part of you, the oldest part, the part that does not speak in words, already knew that the moment the whistle blew,